What's going on, guys? Taco here with Tocito Homestead, and today I'll be working in the dining room and I'll be working in the den. This morning I started out, I was going to work and finish out the stairs in the den, torch them, glue them, and screw them down. But the boss man had different plans. She told me that she wanted me to finish her dining room because she's tired of the way it looks. And as you can tell behind me, I've got, mudded the sheetrock. I've done all that work. I've already sanded everything. It's all ready to go, all ready to be primed. But the first thing that I gotta do is I had to kilts the ceiling. I was just fixing to start rolling on the mud mixed with the paint because I'm gonna use a slat brush to put a texture on the ceiling. And I realized when I looked up there that either there used to be a leak before we moved here, or maybe something hit the ceiling, like grease or water. I don't know. Whatever it is, you know that you got a problem whenever you're mudding, and if it goes through, like it bleeds through your mud, it's going to bleed through regular latex paint. You'll have to get kilts. I had some latex kilts. I don't recommend using latex. I like using the oil-based kilts because it's better. But all I have is the latex kilts, and I'm already started in this process. And I really don't feel like going to the store. She's gone, and me and Cadence are here today. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do what I got and see if it's gonna work. But I am glad that I noticed it and caught the ceiling because if I'd had to put this texture on the ceiling before I killed it, I would have to come back and paint it again. So I'm gonna I got a 3/8 inch nap roller, just a little extension handle is all I got with me. I got another long one over there. And this is what I call it Panda Paw. So whatever y'all wanna call it, you call it what you wanna call it, but it's slat brush Panda Paw. Right here. So this is what I'm going to use on the ceiling. I've done this several times in some flip houses and some rental houses and on our personal houses. So what it's going to look like is it's a fan brush. So you get it up there after you dip this in your mud and your paint mixed together, and then you'll roll it on the ceiling pretty thick. You don't want it too thin. And maybe what I do is I'll make like 3 passes. I don't go any more than 3 passes because it starts to dry. I mean, it's not gonna dry real quick, but it will dry and it won't look evenly across the whole ceiling. So what I'll do is I'll get my roller and I'll do 3 passes, and I'll come back with my handle and my slat brush, my Panda Paw, and I'll hit the ceiling like this. I'll hit it and I'll rotate it like this right here, back and forth, back and forth. So also this is dry, so I'll kind of make this a little bit wet, maybe not just soaking wet, but I'll wet it down enough that way when I start going it'll be like it already had paint on it, and I won't be pulling anything from the ceiling. It won't stick to it as bad, because eventually this is going to have paint and mud all in it, and this is going to be perfect. Just slap it back and forth. So that's what I'm going to do on the ceiling. I've already mudded my holes. I had to screw the ceiling back up again because the ceiling was falling because this house is fairly old. I mudded those holes. There's a few imperfections, but the best thing about this right here is you can cover up a lot of imperfections with this right here. Especially if you put a pretty thick coat when you're rolling it on there, you can cover up a lot and you won't even be able to see it. So I mudded the best that I could. I'm not trying to make it perfect because this house settles, and it settles every year in the summer and the winter time. Stuff's moving around from the heat and from the cold. So I'm gonna turn the camera around and show you some spots on the ceiling, and then I'm gonna go ahead and kill it with this roller. And hopefully today I'll be able to put my mud and my paint together and put this to use. All right, so you can see the spots that I'm talking about right here. See that? All these little spots all over the ceiling right here. Looks like somebody got a bunch of nails and just set them on the ceiling, and they rusted. So that's the reason why I'm gonna have to put the kill on the ceiling so this stuff won't bleed through. And you can see I screwed up the ceiling. There are these little patch places that you see on the ceiling is where I had to re-screw it because the ceiling was starting to fall, and then I mudded over again. And there used to be a vent. There used to be a ceiling vent right here, but now it's over there. So we had to reconnect it, move it, and I patched that, floated it out. So I think it's gonna look all right. So I mudded all the way around here. I did all that. It's got to be primed and everything. So it hasn't. None of this has been primed yet. So I'm fixing to get to it. Alright, so this is the reason why I don't like using water-based kills, because those spots right there, that's going to bleed through my mud too whenever I get ready to put the mud on the ceiling and slap it. And this spot right here. See that? All that's already bled through my water-based kills. So I'm probably going to have to go up to Walmart or have somebody run and get it for me. See those spots? Alright, so I used water-based kills on the ceiling, and I showed you the pictures of the ceiling where the blue coloring, some of that bright blue, teal, whatever color it is, it faded through. It came out of the sheetrock mud, so I'm not sure how that happened. But so a lot of these spots faded through because of this kilts was water-based and it just didn't cut it. So I'm gonna end up having to come back and spray. So I got some original right here. Kilts, original, blocks heavy stains and odors. This stuff works wonders. That's for spot spraying. It's not good if you're gonna try to cover a lot of area. I got a lot of places up here. I got 2 cans of this spray, so I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to cover most of this and get it to where it won't fade through when I do the roll on and use the fan brush for the ceiling. So that's what I'm going to do today. Alright, I want to show y'all, I'm going to show you this spot and show you what this can do to it. Turn the camera around. Alright, there's that spot right there. So, let's see what this can do. Alright, there you go. So this kilts is, it's really good for spot spraying. You don't want to spray your whole ceiling, but it will do good on spot spraying. That's basically what I've been doing on this whole ceiling. As you can see, all these spots right here that are different color. That's the the kilts that I've been spraying on the ceiling. So I'm finding these spots on the ceiling, and I'm just hitting them wherever I can see it, because if I don't, it's gonna show through. So if you ever see any spots like this on your ceiling, just know that you're gonna have to paint the whole ceiling. Just hit the spots that need to be covered so that it doesn't fade through into your paint. I don't know. I had the light on. What do y'all think? Can y'all see? I think the glare, yeah. I'll just leave it off. All right, got about a quarter of a can left. I got a whole other can over there. This is turning out quite nicely. So I'll finish out this ceiling, and then we'll get started on the mud and the paint. And I'll show you how I mix it, and we'll get going with that. All right, so here's what I got. Finished with the ceiling with the kilts. So I have, you can't see it. You got a light. I got a paddle, a 1/2-inch drill. I got the lightweight sheetrock mud +3, comes in the box. Always, the rule of thumb for me is like if I'm doing sheetrock mud, you always get the first one, you get a sheetrock bucket, a 5-gallon bucket of mud, which, you know, a bucket of mud would look something similar to that right there. Then after that, when you get more mud, you can always get the box of mud, and then you just put it inside the bucket, because actually the boxes of mud, they're cheaper than just buying a bucket, so you can save yourself some money. And all you do is you just open the top up on it, lay the cardboard lips on the side over, and you take the knot out of the plastic, and you fold the plastic over the sides all the way around, and you just pick it up and dump it inside the bucket. First thing you want to make sure is that whatever bucket you're using, that it's clean, right? So I already cleaned my bucket out. I'm not going to dump this whole box of mud inside of this 5-gallon bucket, because I don't need all that mud. So I got my paddle bit, my 1/2-inch drill, my sheetrock mud, a 5-gallon bucket, a paint screen, and then I got some paint, which was cheaper at Walmart. So I got some ceiling paint, flat ceiling white, that I'm going to mix in with the mud to give it some color and help it bond. And of course my roller handle over there. So I'm going to use about, I don't know, I'll probably use about half of this, so it won't hurt to dump about half of it. I'll try to scoop it out with a mud knife. So I use about half of that, and then I'll pour in probably about 1/2 gallon of paint and mix it up. I want the mud to be fairly thick, right? I don't want it to be thin, because if it's real thin, all it's going to do is just fall on me, and it's not going to stick to the ceiling. So I want it to be fairly thick. But I wanted to show you, these are the things that I'm going to be using, and I'm fixing to start mixing it up. Alright, so that's about half. So I'm gonna get my paint and pour my paint in here, and I'll hook my bit up, and we'll mix it up and see what it looks like. And there's reason why that I don't leave this mud in this box for long periods of time. It's because this mud will dry faster on this plastic, right? So if you're just using the mud out of this to mud your house, when this mud dries around the edge, it's going to fall down into your mud you're wanting to use. In turn, when you're trying to float out with your 12-inch or your 8-inch knife, all this junk that fell down in there, it's going to be in your mud and it's going to leave lines. So that's why I always, when I open this up, the first thing that I do is I dump it in a bucket that I can put a lid on it and I don't have to worry about it drying. So I'll do that later. Alright, so you see how it's dripping off? That's a pretty good flow for me. It's not just oozing off like real quick. It's got a slow drip to it. It might not even hurt to add a little bit more mud to it. I like mine to be just a little thick when I'm rolling on the mud. All right. Oh yeah. I like that. Yeah. All right. All right. So I got helper number 1 and helper number 2. We got Curtis and Landon here to help because I'm going to show y'all what I'm doing so you don't mess up. All right. When you're using this mud and this paint, it dries on the ceiling pretty quick, so you don't have time to kind of mosey around. When I say I don't roll fast, that means I'm not rolling the ceiling fast because I don't want to sling it everywhere. But I'm only doing like a 3 pass for about 4 foot, and then I'm coming back and slapping it, because if you leave it up there for too long, you're not going to get the desired texture that you want. So he's going to come over here and he'll film what I'm doing on the ceiling so you can see it, and then I'll come back and slap it. Also, I didn't put a border around here because I'll come back with a sanding block and sand it. I didn't put any plastic around the edges to keep it off the wall, obviously, because the walls aren't finished. But if the walls are finished, you'll have to put something around it from keeping getting on the walls, or you'll have to come back and paint everything again. So it's best to put the plastic with it's got the painter's tape on it. It's plastic attached to it, and you can drape it around the walls. It'll keep it from getting everywhere. But like I said, these walls aren't done, so I wasn't worried about it. But if you can see what I'm doing, it's just nice, even runs. I'll put it on there pretty thick, and then I'm coming back and I'm smoothing it out to where you can see once you get it on there evenly, it all looks the same with your roller. You're just laying it, you're not laying it flat, it's gonna look rough. You want it to look rough, you want it to be thick, because you're fixing to come back with this brush, and the slap brush is gonna lay it out and give it its texture. So alright, so let's see what it looks like. Here we go. And I'm just hitting it and spinning it. That's all I'm doing. And I'll come over where I just went a little ways and make sure that I'm blending this stuff in pretty good. I'm not leaving anything out. Oh yeah, that looks nice. This corner right there. Alright, so then when I come over here on my next pass, I'll make sure this, don't ever let it dry. That's why you gotta keep moving. You gotta keep moving. If you let it dry and come back, you're gonna see where you stop and started. So once you start, you need to keep going. Don't ever stop until you finish the whole ceiling. Alright, so let's change back over to the roller. You feel me? Yeah. That's about as wide right here as I'm gonna go. I'll stop right here, and then I'll take the rest of it and I'll roll it that way. I'll go about 4 foot. So I mean, I'm putting it on pretty thick. But I'm going real, this is about as fast as I'm going to roll it right here. Back and forth, just like that. And then you'll come back and do it again. And remember, wherever you start at, it's thick here. So that's why I'll come back and get it, and then I'm going to pull it back down again. And I'll go back down and get it again, and I'll pull it back down again, and then I'll break my line right in the middle and smooth it out. I'll do one more pass like that, and then I'll slap it. And I'll come back and hit my center line right here. All right, and then we'll hit it with the brush. Just like that. I don't know if y'all can tell it on the camera, but I can see my design. You can see it pretty well over here. If you were painting a different color besides white, you would really be able to see the texture on it. Alright, well, I'm 3/4 of the way done. It took me just a slight break. It's looking nice. It's looking good. The ceiling is starting to dry where I first started at, and once it dries, you can really start seeing the texture on the ceiling. So, one thing that I guess I could remind you before I show you what I've been doing is that only make about 2 or 3 roller passes, right? About 2 or 3 roller passes is all you're going to want to do in order to keep up with it so it looks okay. When you come back over your seams on your roller, say if you do 2 roller passes and then you slap brush it, all right, and then you come back to do 2 more roller passes, what you need to do is make sure that you overlap where you slapped it about a 1/2 inch, right? That way when you come back and slap that section, it'll all match out. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I'll flip the camera around. Alright, so you can see what I've done and what I haven't done, right? So whenever I come back and roll, I'll make sure that I overlap that seam about 1/2 inch, and then when I come back and slap it on the ceiling, you won't be able to tell where I started and stopped at. But other than that, it's pretty simple, guys. Nothing to it. Well, I'm gonna get this camera turned around and I'll film some more of me doing the ceiling. Alright. I got about a quarter of a way to go. Honestly, I'm ready to be done anyway because this is day number 2. I'm having paint. I got paint on me in my eyes and my throat and my hands and my hair, on my arms, in the bucket, and I got a little bit on the ceiling. But
just a little bit.
So as you can see, if you're just remember the main steps that I talked about, that you don't want to go and do too many rows at one time. You want to make sure that you only do like 2 rows. Make sure you come back and finish it, and then when you start over again, overlap it a 1/2 inch. When you roll it, that way you can come back with your Panda Paw slat brush and feather it out so it'll match. You can go slow with your roller to save on losing mud on the floor, but you don't want to go slow when you're putting it on the ceiling and stopping, because this stuff dries. It dries fairly quick because of the paint mixed in with it. And I don't know if I said this before, but the paint does, I know I said it helps bond, but also if you put paint with your mud, it also gives it color. Now I don't have to paint the ceiling now because it's ceiling white. I'm done. I mudded it, rolled it, slapped it, and I'm finished.